Just like the street lights lit this town, like a fire in a blaze, gotta burn it down. Can't be afraid to leave this out. We got this far, don't know how. I see danger in your eyes. They know we'll burn down the night. Coming just like the sunrise. You know that we're gonna light it up tonight. We're gonna light it up tonight. We're gonna light it up just like the sunrise. We're gonna light it up now. Just like a spark that's breaking out. Can't make a stop, can't turn back now. We know that there's no room for doubt. No, we can't turn back now. I see danger in your eyes. They know we'll burn down the night. Coming just like the sunrise. You know that we're gonna light it up tonight. We're gonna light it up tonight. We're gonna light it up just like the sunrise. We're gonna light it up now.
Hey guys, and welcome to the channel where we do talk all things true crime. If you're joining me, whether it's on, I have my camera down here on my phone, whether it's on TikTok, which I might be looking up, or YouTube, thank you guys for joining me tonight. I do appreciate it. Hopefully you guys had a great weekend. A great weekend. Cheers to ya. Cheers to ya. But hopefully you guys had a great weekend. I won't go through all the names since I do have TikTok up, but I guess it really doesn't matter. Maybe it'll get more people to come in and join the live. You know, you never know. So we are going to be talking about Idaho 4 tonight, and we're going to go back through the transcripts like we were going through before. I don't know what this is, but I'm going to try it. I don't know how to do it. Okay. We'll see. Okay. So, hey, Mary Beth, how you doing? Hey, Ladybug. You fell asleep last night? We figured you probably did. Hey, Tony, welcome in. It's good to see you guys. Hey, Princess. I know I'm going to miss somebody. I always feel like I do. And if you're joining us over on TikTok, welcome. Welcome. Hey, Doodlebug. How you doing tonight? Hey, Dawn. It's good to see ya. It's good to see everybody. Hey, Tempest. Hey, Mandy. Hey, PKC. I've been switching the times on you guys. Everyone's going to be like, when does she go live? I usually go live 9:15, but we're getting back to the 9:15 mark. Hey, KJ. It's been, the last few nights have been kind of late, so. Hey, Ashley. Welcome in. Hey, Bullets and Bling. And welcome in everybody over on TikTok. Hey, PJs. Hey, Lisa. DM, did I say? I didn't say hi to you, DM. Hey, DM. Watching on the TV. I'm on the big screen. Oh, we got toothache. But good thing you're going to the dentist tomorrow, because that crap's no joke. If you can't make it till tomorrow and you have to get something, clove oil. That's what y'all told me, and it worked. It worked like a charm. I had a really bad toothache one night. Well, not one night. It was over the course of like a long time. I didn't take care of it. I just kept like putting it on the back burner. Hey, John. Hey, Darla. Welcome in. It's good to see you guys. Yeah, you said clove oil, and I was like, I'll try anything. At that point, I would have tried anything at all. And I'm glad that you guys told me that, because clove oil is so good for if you have tooth pain. Oh my gosh, it would take the pain away. And what I would do is I would like turn my camera off like every like 30 minutes, every 45 minutes, and I would put clove oil on it, and then I would turn my camera back on. We did lives just like we usually do. So they went on as normal. Hey, Willow. Oh, I'm on the TV there too. I think I put myself on the TV one time and I was like, no. Hey, CJK. Vincent was listening to me last night, and he hasn't listened to me in a while. And I was like, okay. He likes the Idaho 4 case. He enjoys listening to that. So he was listening in, and what was I going to say about that? He was listening in. I don't even know. My brain just exited my body there for a minute. Does that ever happen to you guys? Literally just exited out. We were talking about being on the TV. Oh, he had me, he watched my live last night. So when I went in there, I could hear myself, because it was like my next video just came up and was playing. And I was like, do I hear myself? Do I? And I did. So thank you. Thanks, CJK. I appreciate that. Appreciate the compliment. I'm actually going to get a whole lot more hair here before too long. If you guys are watching me over on TikTok, just to let you know, you guys got like the best lighting over there. Like I have like a million lights. You would think that I have zero other than the one behind me, this way, but I have more than that. Let me show you guys before we get started, the macrame that we've hung up today. You can't see it in the light that well when this light, but I'll have to make sure that I get it. I'm going to make sure I get, everything. You'll see it all whenever it's done. But we did hang that. And then we ordered pretty much everything except for just like a little bit of wall art. We're so almost done with this remodel. Well, thanks, Mary Beth. I appreciate that. You guys are so nice. Ooh, being on the TV and iPhone, you get 2 likes. I like that. I like that too. I do that sometimes. Hey, Frenchie. Like if I'm watching somebody, I'll be on the other side. This house is not big, but I'll be on like the other side of the house, and I'll have it on my iPad, but then I go into the kitchen and I don't take it with me. So then by the time I make it over here, I have it up on the computer, and then I still have it on the iPad in the bedroom. So unfortunately for the TikTokers, you guys are not going to be able to see what I'm reading. But if you want to come over to YouTube, you can see what I'm reading. If not, you can just listen in, and I'll read it the best that I can read it to you guys. We did start last night. So we went through pages 1 through 37, and we stopped on 37. That was the next witness they were getting ready to call. So we just kind of stopped it there, and we figured we would just come back to it today. So I did get, I've been like highlighting the parts for you guys. So I did get pages 37 through 113 done. So I figured we'll go through those tonight, and then we'll go through the following like 60 some pages and maybe tomorrow, probably tomorrow. But tonight we're reading for part 2. And if anyone has any questions, let me know. Hey, Aries. I didn't even have to look at the name. I just saw the long name, and I knew it was going to be Aries. Hold on, bro. Even are I've been asked, like, I'm like, I'm Tanya, I know who I am, but I don't have Netflix. I might have to though. So yeah, actually let me, get on here for just a minute and we can do that. So, because tomorrow we're going to go over everything that we've kind of heard and everything that kind of happened. Okay, I'll just make sure I didn't have this like up on the screen so I didn't like, I'm trying to go back up to here to get my brain refreshed. You know how like I need like a refresh because we are processing a lot of information. We did find out that we knew that we had heard that there was red stuff, BLOOD, found on a hand railing, but we didn't know which hand railing it was. And it is the hand railing from the second floor coming down to the first floor. So when they say that they didn't test that spot, I guess they're saying that reason why they didn't go further in the testing with that spot was because they were more focused on the knife sheath because they knew that that was probably what held the murder weapon, and that their path of travel that they believe Brian took that night, or allegedly whoever, didn't go near the first floor or the second floor balcony, or the second floor, I'm sorry, second floor landing. So for that to get on the handrail. That's what I'm thinking that they're thinking. But they should have tested it. They should have tested every single piece of biological evidence that there was in that house. And they should have figured out exactly who it belonged to and how it related to why it was in the home. It could be something as easy, it's as simple as, a nosebleed, someone having a nosebleed, to maybe someone, they had a lot of parties there. Maybe two guys were like roughhousing, one got a nosebleed or a busted lip, and they were walking down the stairs, to get cleaned up, maybe in the bathroom downstairs, because the bathroom on the second floor was occupied at the time. It could be something as easy as that, but we don't know. We don't know. So, and maybe we'll find out during trial. Maybe we will, maybe we won't. But I hope we do. I sure hope we do. So let me get you guys up so I can see the chat while I'm reading. There we go. And are we on the right page? Nope. Let me get us to the right page. There we go. Okay. So let me actually go up to the beginning of this a little bit. Sorry, guys. So the first interview that they did was with, the first witness they called was Detective Payne. And this time I feel like he was a little this time I feel like the conversation, there was no I don't knows. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I felt like when we had the hearing, motions hearing, when they were doing their, direct examination, there was a lot of, well, I don't know. Well, I'm not sure. And that's not a good thing to be saying when you are a police officer. So they did have Corporal Brett Payne on there. And then now we're going to hear from, let me get to the page, Rylan Nolan. So it says the defense can call its next witness. Let me pull this up here and I think that's pretty good. I'm going to put my glasses on because I might need them. I don't want to hurt the only eye that I have, You want to make sure that one stays good for years to come, because then how will I read to you guys? Would be good. It says here, let me go back up. Okay. Defense can call its next witness, and let me put the banner up. So if anything is in blue, it's going to be coming from the defense. Anything in pink is going to come from the state. Anything in yellow is going to come from the court or the clerk. And then now we have a new one. Anybody that's a witness or being cross-examined or being directly examined, they're going to be in purple. So I'm going to put the banner up that says everything that I just said. It's just not going to have the purple part. I could put that in there though. It is a, we'll just put witness or expert like that. I think that'll get us through to for tonight. That'll get us through. So Miss Taylor, these are and the only ones I'm going to read like back and forth their names is, just when at the beginning. When they start doing the question and answering part, it'll go a lot faster. So it says, defense can call its next witness. And Miss Taylor said, I'm sorry, ? The court, which is Judge Hippler, you can call your next witness. Taylor says, Rylan Nolan. The clerk says, do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give now before the court is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Oh, I forgot Miss Nolan there. Miss Nolan said, I do. So Miss Taylor says, good morning. Good morning back. Will you please state your name for the record? Rylan, Rylene, Nolan, Nowlin. And then the first question is, well, it's not really questions, is I think you've done this before a few times. How are you employed? I'm employed as a forensic laboratory manager with the Idaho State Police Forensic Services Laboratory in Mandarin, Idaho. How long have you worked for the Idaho State Police Forensics Laboratory? I have worked for the Idaho State Police Forensic Services since November 2002. Did you have prior experience similar? Prior to my employment with ISP, I did not. How were you trained for your job? I have formal education. I was originally hired as a forensic scientist in the biology DNA /unit. As such, I was required to have a degree in biology, biochemistry, or similar. I was required to have coursework in genetics, molecular biology, biochemistry, and statistics. And then I completed the Idaho State Police Forensic Services specialized training program in biology screening, as well as DNA analysis, as well as in DNA database analysis. And then I completed hundreds of hours of continuing education over my years. Are you a member of any professional organizations? Yes, ma'am. Which ones? I am a member of the Northwest Association of Forensic Scientists, the American Association of Forensic Sciences, and the American Society of Crime Laboratory Directors. Are you part of a collaborative? Yes, I am a member of the National Technology and Validation Implementation Collaborative. And then next question was, what is that one about? That is a group comprised of laboratory management. Typically, it depends on which portion or subsection of the collaborative that have gathered together to generate ideas for best practices and guidelines for new technologies coming into forensics. Would investigative genetic genealogy be a new technology coming into forensics? That is one of the technologies. However, our group refers to it as FIG, Forensic Investigative Genetic Genealogy. FIG. Okay, I'll try to remember that. That's the one I want to talk about today. So your group is talking with the best practices for FIG. Is that right? That's one of our areas of focus. Are you doing that because there are practices that are important in that discipline? We are doing that because it's a new technology coming into forensics world, and not every laboratory manager has a background in DNA. We also have a group of firearms because not every laboratory manager has a background in firearms. And it's just like a resource for those managers as they're looking to implement new technologies. Just stick with me because it does get really good. He just does a lot of the technical talk. So it says here, you mentioned best practices. Does that have anything to do with things that I might refer to as standards or procedures or protocols? And the answer to that was no. What does best practices mean? Best practice is a recommendation based on a current knowledge in the field. There are organizations that come up with standards for different fields, but this group, that is not their purpose. In your lab, do you have standards and procedures and protocols? Our laboratory does have, we call them analytical methods, as well as our quality system. Analytical methods and quality systems means they are the same thing as procedures and protocols. Yes. What does that mean to you? So what does this mean to me? Our laboratory is accredited laboratory, so we have a set of accreditations, standards that we must meet. In order to do that, we have set quality policies as well as the analytical methods for each discipline. That ensures that we are consistently performing our scientific analysis in a way that has been validated and shown to be proper for the testing that's been conducted. And it also shows that we are meeting the national standards by which we are accredited. In addition, DNA has additional standards that they must meet called the FBI Quality Assurance Standards for Forensic Casework Laboratories, as well as for forensic databasing laboratories. That's a lot. That was a handful. Mouthful. Question. I want to start with the first part of it. You mentioned, I think, that there's standards and protocols, my definition of them, that helps assure your work so that somebody could look and see what you did and maybe get the same result or understand what you did. Do I understand that right? Answer is yes. It's the methods we follow, and yes, that would be one application. Somebody could look and see what we did. This is question. Now you mentioned at the very end of what you told me before, DNA has something separate. Correct. What do you mean? Because our laboratory is a participant in the National DNA Index System, it's commonly referred to as CODIS, which stands for Combined DNA Index System. We are subject to additional standards set forth by the FBI because they manage that database. What are those standards? Those standards are known as the QAS standards. They cover everything from when I listed the classes I had at the beginning, they decided what classes a DNA analysis coming in should have, what education a DNA technical leader should have, what things need to be included in a validation study, how facilities need to be controlled. It covers the gamut of testing. And then the question is, validation study, what does that mean? Whenever a new chemistry, a new instrument, a new procedure is coming online in the laboratory, we perform a study to ensure that the chemistry, instrument, or procedure is working or receiving the expected results. Okay, and to be sure, you have to do that because you use CODIS. Our DNA section has to do that because we use CODIS. The rest of the laboratory because of our part of our accreditation standards. Tell me what CODIS is briefly. CODIS Combined DNA Index System is essentially a national DNA database. It exists on 3 levels. There is a local level, your county sheriff's office, local PDs. There's a state level, which is typically the state laboratory. It is limited to public laboratories, and then the national level. In Idaho, the Idaho State Police Forensic Services Lab in Mandarin is the only DNA lab in the state, so there are no local labs in the state of Idaho. So when they said, why'd they go to that lab? Well, they had to go to that lab. There was no other labs available. It says, and the database contains different indices. There's a forensic index. Those are profiles obtained from items of evidence. There's an offender index, who samples from those convicted of qualifying offenses in your state as determined by your state legislature. If your state legislature allows arrestees, there's an arrestee index. There's also a missing person index and 4 remains. The next question, do you have any special role with the CODIS database? Currently, I'm a CODIS user. That is my only role at the moment. What was your role in the fall of November of 2022? CODIS user. Do you have any administrative responsibilities with CODIS? And he says, not currently. Have you in the past, or she, sorry. In the past, I have served as the alternate state administrator for Idaho. For CODIS DNA that goes into CODIS, what kind of profile is used? If I'm understanding the question correctly, there's different types of DNA profiles, and what goes into CODIS is known as an STR profile or short tandem repeat. What kind of information is in a short tandem repeat or STR? And then they say, can I give a brief explanation about DNA? And listen up, birdies, because this is where I was like, oh, I mean, I went to school for criminal justice and applied science, so I love listening to this kind of stuff. But I mean, we're going to get a little lesson here. So it says, so DNA is a substance that's found in the cells of our body. It acts as a blueprint. It tells our bodies what form to take and how to function. Between individuals, it is over 99% the same. That is why we all have the same basic structure and our bodies function in basically the same way. In forensics and in STRs, we are targeting that less than 1% that is unique to an individual, with the exception of identical twins. And so areas of DNA that are very widely between individuals don't code for anything typically. So it doesn't tell us anything about a person. When I look at an STR profile, I can tell you if that person is genetically male or genetically female, and that is all. So STR profile, they can tell if a person is male or female. Do you know what an SNP profile is? I do. What is that? An SNP profile is a single nucleotide polymorphism. So you're looking into a single nucleotide, whereas the STR is a series of repeating nucleotides, a specific repeat that we're looking for. Question, the SNP then, is that a closer look at a person's genome? I would like to state that I'm not an expert in SNPs. I'm not qualified in the SNP technology and have not ever been qualified in the SNP technology. He's just making sure he covers his bases, isn't he? With STRs, depending on the chemistry, you're looking at anywhere from 13 to 25 plus locations. With SNPs, my understanding is, in general, you're looking at a minimum of 10,000. Does that mean there's more information about a human contained in an SNP than there is an STR profile? Oh, I didn't see this part to highlight it, but Mr. Nye steps in. He says, Your Honor, I'm going to object at this point. The witness is not disclosed as an expert, and she just testified she's not an expert in SNP technology. Judge Hippler says, I appreciate that with respect to her answer, and I will take that into account in the event the defense intends to rely on that testimony. I took it as a sort of background about her general knowledge. I'll allow it for now. I'm not taking it as expert testimony about that SNP beyond the basic understanding of what SNP is. And Ms. Taylor says, thank you. And then she's back to her questions. Do you remember my question? Yes, I would assume if you're looking at a larger part of the human genome that you would be getting a larger amount of information about someone. I have one more question about CODIS, then I want to move in a different area. You mentioned that there's 4 indexes and you talked about a forensic index. Correct. What is that one used for? The forensic index is where profiles generated from items of evidence can be uploaded. There are rules about what can be uploaded, though. It cannot match someone known to be the victim of a crime. It cannot match someone whose DNA should be in a place outside of a crime being committed. It cannot be anything taken directly from a suspect of a crime where you would reasonably assume their DNA would be present. It must be related to a crime, and it must be believed to be from the punitive perpetrator of that crime. Okay. So if I understand it, you use DNA, get an STR, and only under certain circumstances can you use CODIS. Do I understand that correct? Or right, they say correct. Okay, outside of CODIS, and I understand what that does. If you create a profile, a DNA profile of somebody, is that a separate thing you do in your lab, even if you're not going to run them through CODIS? And they say yes. When we receive items of evidence or samples from known individuals, we generate a DNA profile from those. Did you become involved in the homicide in Moscow from 2022? Involved as the manager of the laboratory in Mandarin. I haven't actually done any work on any evidence in the case or issued any reports. All right. Is it fair to say you did not go to the residence then? Correct. As the lab manager, do you understand about what evidence has come into the lab from that case? There was a lot of evidence submitted. I have a general knowledge of items that have come in, but I could not provide you a detailed list off the top of my head. And then Ms. Taylor says, that's okay. I won't ask you to. Thank you. As a lab manager, are you aware of different bits of testing that were done related to this case? In general, yes. Are you aware of a profile called Unknown Male A? Bum, bum, bum. Yes. Where did that come from? To my recollection, Unknown Male A came from a swab taken from a knife sheath that was submitted by Moscow Police Department. Are you aware of Unknown Male B? I believe that was another sample from hearing the previous testimony that was from in the house. I would only want you to testify from your own base of knowledge. From my own memory, I don't recall exactly where B was from. Fair enough. Thank you for clarifying that for me. Are you aware that investigative genetic genealogy or forensic investigative genetic genealogy was used in this case? Yes. What was your role in that? My role specific to this case was facilitating the signing of a memorandum of understanding, making sure all parties received it and had signed it. Those parties being the police agency, the prosecuting attorney's office, as well as a member of ISP's management team. And then when the preliminary report was received, my job was to look over it, ensure it had all the required pieces in the report, and then to authorize payment of the invoice for that testing. What role did you have with the laboratory that was going to perform the IgG or FIGG work? As far as we came to be in contract with them. So when ISP decided to pursue a contract with a laboratory that could perform the SNP testing that we talked about earlier, we're a state agency, so we don't just get to call up anybody and hire them. So we had to go through a bid process. So part of my role was developing the scope of work for that invitation to bid, as in what we expected the vendor to perform. And then when the bids came in, I was involved in the team that evaluated the documents that were submitted, and then ultimately the division of purchasing determined who won the bid. It says, did Idaho State Police Forensics have a contract with this laboratory, Othram? And the answer was they were the winning bid through that process, and so they were under contract with the Department of Purchasing, correct? Is the contract with the Department of Purchasing that you perform these services and we pay you for them essentially, or does it have more meat to it to talk about some of the things that you were talking about? How you help develop, I guess, the job description and what would be required? I am not really familiar with Department of Purchasing's day-to-day operations or how they operate. My role was strictly developing the scope of work. We expect them to develop the profiles that can be uploaded to the public genealogy database. We expect them to provide us a written report. We expect the report to contain certain things, to have a header, to have a date, to list the case number, have page numbers, those kinds of things. Next question was, outside the description of the scope of work and the requirements, did your lab have a separate contract with Othram that basically said you agree to do these things? We had that they won the bid from the Division of Purchasing, and that's the state contract for performing that work. You mentioned a memorandum of understanding you helped facilitate to be signed by the parties. Was Othram one of the parties that signed that? No, this is a memorandum between the law enforcement agencies, the prosecuting attorney's office, and the laboratory. And in that memorandum of understanding, that indicated that the interim Department of Justice, the Department of Justice interim policy applied. Is that right? I believe it did. I don't have the exact text memorized. If I showed you a copy of that memorandum of understanding, would that help you remember if that was part of it? Yes. Your Honor, if I have just a moment to gather that, it's not being offered as an exhibit. And Hippler says, just refreshing. And Ms. Taylor says, it's to aid in her memory. And then the court says, show it to the state's counsel. And then Ms. Taylor goes back into her questioning. So I don't know what happened there. Maybe it was that was redacted. So does looking at that refresh your memory as to whether the Department of Justice interim policy applied? It does say in the first paragraph that it did apply. And says again, and Your Honor, I'm going to refer to Defense Exhibit D19 here and ask the witness be shown that, and then I'll provide the court my copy. The court, Judge Hippler says, when was this filed? And says that would have been filed with the amended Frank's memorandum on the bottom of that page. I'm sorry. Hippler says, I've got thousands of filings. I have to go by date to find things. And says, I think it was November 18th or the 20th. At the bottom of the page, however, you can see some numbers in red, and those were numbered to make it easier to find. Hippler says, I just need to find it in the computer first. All right, I found it in my printed documents. Because she didn't give him a copy. She didn't bring him a copy. She literally got yelled at in the first 3 minutes of, the proceedings. So she said she wasn't going to print out 10,000 pages and haul them down. And he said, yeah, you will. Yeah, you will. Question, is the Department of Justice interim policy? Yes, the Department of Justice interim policy on forensic genetic genealogical DNA analysis and searching. And in section 7, I believe it's section 7 or page 7. And then the answer is investigative caution, that section. And Ann says, let me ask you the question. Are you familiar with the provision in that policy that says if there's a prosecution case, if somebody is arrested and there's a prosecution case, all items in the forensic investigative genetic genealogy should be preserved for court purposes? I believe that is part of, I don't think it's a section, I believe that it is part of. I don't think it's in section 7. It might be, but I believe that is part of preserving. Bam. Question. Okay. What I want to know is, what did Othram preserve? I don't know. What did you get back? We received a preliminary report. In other cases, we will sometimes get back the DNA extract that was sent to them. I don't recall if we got that back in this case. Anything our laboratory receives, we return to the submitting agency. Would validation be part of that? Validation studies. I wouldn't assume so. I wouldn't assume that would be a part of this, no. Would bench notes be important? And the court says, I'm sorry, I didn't hear that. What notes? And Ann says, bench notes, lab bench notes. Hippler says, thank you. And the witness says, for our laboratory, we designated those as part of our case record. I'm not familiar with what Othram designates as part of their case record. Ms. Taylor says, so I guess then that means you don't have any of those. No, only preliminary report. All right, I will move to a different area of questioning, and it's about the requirements with Othram. You mentioned the goal was to create profiles and create a report, but to search public databases. Correct. There are public genealogy databases that will allow entry of law enforcement samples, and that is part of the scope of work. They were required to enter it into those databases. Are you aware that there are databases that do not allow law enforcement to search? Yes. Were you part of work after Othram began their work to try and do an investigation? I was not. As far as I guess I'm unclear, we received evidence submitted to the laboratory before, during, and after for all sections. Is that what you're referring to? And Anne wants to rephrase. Let me rephrase my question. I think the question was too broad. While Othram was doing their work, were you part of any work to help Othram? For instance, did you get any documents that you did some research on to try to help Othram? No. Were you aware that Othram was just stopped from doing any further work at some point? I was aware of that. And was this before they produced any result? No. We received a preliminary report. I recall receiving that because that's how I know I can approve payment of the invoice, so I know we received that prior to them being told they were stopped. Were you part of the decision to stop them? I was not. How did you find out about it? I found out about it in an email from my laboratory system director. Do you remember when that happened? I don't recall. Does the forensic lab continue to contract with Othram? Yes. If Othram had a file that would have had validation studies and bench notes, anything they did on the case, who would have received that? Again, validation studies would be odd to associate with individual cases, so I wouldn't assume they would do that. Again, I'm not familiar with their procedures, and as far as who would receive documents, usually it would be, I would assume, the agency which we received the preliminary report. You mentioned you're not familiar with their procedures. Not in detail, no. What procedures are you familiar with? For Othram, yes. Let me grab a drink. Check on you guys. Are you guys doing okay over here? Everybody doing okay? Okay, I had to get a drink. It does get better. I did read some parts in here today that were better. So, as part of the bid process, all of the bidders were required to submit. I believe they were required to submit their procedures. And it was essentially just looking over them to say, yes, they have a procedure in place for extracting DNA. Yes, they have a procedure in place for doing S&Ps. So yes, they meet their minimums for the invitations to bid. But again, I'm not qualified in that technology, so I wouldn't have studied them or rendered an opinion on them. I won't ask you for your opinion on them. I won't ask you to quote them to me, but you saw those. Yes, at the very beginning of the bid process. So let's switch gears, she says. In the case we are here for today, do you recall there being a trash pool? And the court reporter said, I'm sorry, there being a what? And Ms. Taylor said, a trash pool. The witness said, I recall receiving evidence from a trash pool, correct. What role did you have in deciding anything about the trash pool? Nothing about the trash pool occurring. I do recall there being a brief, I can't remember if it was a phone call or a phone meeting or a video meeting, and just being asked in general what items from someone's trash are good for DNA. Did you give advice? I don't know if it was me specifically or another member of our DNA unit, but we did offer suggestions on items that are good for DNA. Did you receive items to test? Yes. What instructions were you given about those items? Hold on one second. The discussion was a person of interest. Okay, what instructions were you given about those items? It says the discussion was a person of interest, had been developed, and to analyze the items from the trash to determine if they could be inclusive of the DNA profile that was developed from the knife sheath. Unknown male A. What date was that you received the trash? The trash was received into the laboratory on December 28th of 2022. So you were looking for a male profile, correct? All right, did you find the male profiles? I didn't perform the actual testing, but yes, there were male profiles developed. How many? I don't know. Do you know anything about either male profile or any of them? I believe one of the male profiles designated as E was determined they could be a biological parent or child of the profile from the knife sheath. And are you aware that Brian Koberger's DNA was in the trash? I was not aware. Did you become aware? I became aware later. We didn't have his name at that time. You didn't know his name on December 28th. No, I did not. Okay, were you on December 28th, were you aware that not male E, but another male profile had been identified from the trash pool? I knew there were some mixtures of DNA that were also included. One of the mixtures, did it have a male DNA profile? I believe it did. And wasn't that profile the major component of that profile with a minor female? I'm confused. Okay, what? Who would be a minor female? I believe that sounds correct, they say. Brian's sisters don't have kids. Do you guys have any idea on who a minor female would be in this case? On Brian Koberger's side? Hey, Tish. I was reading the chat. If you're over on TikTok, you're probably like, why is she being so quiet all of a sudden? I was reading the YouTube chat. So it says, so it did have one. Okay, I don't know. And later did that return to Brian Koberger. We actually did not perform that comparison. Did you and I have a discussion a few days ago? Did you and I have a discussion a few days ago? We did. Did you tell me that you knew that to be Brian Koberger's DNA? I said, I thought that was, and I could not find the report where we had done that comparison. I've since looked through and we did not make that comparison, so I cannot say that he was included in that mixture. Our laboratory did not do that comparison. It could have been a family member from coming over for like Christmas dinner. That could be it. Question, but a DNA profile was made for that mixture. Is that right? Yes. And there's a minor female and a major male. That is my understanding. And you could, by eye, look at that and tell that's Brian Koberger, couldn't you? If you wanted to. If I wanted to, I could probably look. I did not. Okay, you could still do it today if you wanted to. If there was a request to do the comparison again, we don't do a visual comparison, evidence to evidence. Our procedures don't allow us to do that for probative comparisons. Question, I need you to help me understand that a little bit. I'm having that question because I understand there was an unknown male B found on lab item 30. Do you know what I'm talking about? No. Okay. Well, I also understood. All right. Well, I also understand that there was a cigarette butt taken from somebody in connection with the case investigation. Are you familiar with that? I wonder who that was. I am familiar with that. Do you think that was Koberger's dad? And that was compared to the DNA on the knife sheath. Is that right? Yes. And that was found to be excludable. Am I using that word right? It was an exclusion, correct? Guess not. So you compared something that was taken from somebody to an item of evidence. Is that right? Something that was a secondary reference, as in someone identified it as they saw that person using that item. They saw that person dispose of that item. That item was collected and used as a reference sample from that person because there was someone who said that it was from that person. Oh my gosh, y'all. Bet me Bet me money that Brian Kohlberger is not going to be planting some freaking DNA in this case. Bet me that they don't come back and like they need to be testing all this stuff. They should have tested it. It'll probably come back as Oprah Winfrey's or something. You know what I mean? Like, think about it. There was gloves outside with BLOOD on it. No, none, not Brian's though. And then there was BLOD on the banister. And now we're hearing this. I don't know. You guys tell me what you think. But I think he might have been. I mean, if we're going to make him smart, we're going to make him damn smart, right? Because it's either one or the other. The dude either has no damn common sense, which that's what I kind of think, or he's extremely smart. He had everything prepared, but when it came down to it, when it came down to the actual committing of the crime, that's when shit got real. And it got real quick, I believe. I believe he thought Maddie was going to be alone in that room that whole night. And he didn't think that Kaylee was going to be there. So he thought the third floor was vacant with just Maddie up there. And, well, Kaylee was there. And, wow. Shoo. Okay. So it says, so you compared something that was taken from somebody to an item of evidence. Is that correct? Is that right? Something that was a secondary reference, as in someone identified it as they saw that person using that item. They saw that person dispose of that item. I already read this part, sorry. That item was collected and used as a reference sample from that person because there was someone who said that it was from that person. Okay. When you got the trash to go through in the lab, you knew that you were looking for a male, right? Correct. And you knew that the male and his family members lived in a house that produced that bag of trash. Is that right? Yes, but not who produced each individual item in that trash pool. Okay. It wasn't labeled. This water bottle is from person of interest. This tissue is from a sibling. This Q-tip is from a parent. We didn't have that information. It was just, here's some items from a trash pool. And one of those items you took and developed male E. I did not, but yes, the laboratory did. In general, the lab developed male E. Correct. And compared male A and male E. There was a paternity statistic calculated because they were both single source profiles, meaning only from one individual. Okay, and there's another male profile. That was part of the mixture, to my knowledge, meaning more than one person's DNA present on that item. Again, only one male, though. Is that right? So when there's a mixture on an item of evidence, I don't know if you want me to explain the process. The first step is determining number of contributors to that mixture. Then our laboratory utilizes a software program to help break out the components of that mixture. When one individual is male, it's not always possible to say the gender of the second person. Males have an X and a Y chromosome. Females only have an X. So if there's an X and a Y present, it could be one male. It could be two males. It could be a male and a female. Without comparing two known reference samples, I cannot say that. And I haven't seen the profile to my knowledge. Okay. Did you tell me, though, on that sample, and I'm talking about 95.9.1, that was a male and a female? I believe that. I don't know if it was designated as that in the laboratory report. To my knowledge, it was. I can't remember what the report said. Again, I didn't generate the report and didn't do the work, so I'm not as familiar with it as if it was my own work. Yet Anne's asking a lot of questions that are not these people's job in their job descriptions. Very weird. Okay, male B was also a mixture, wasn't it? Okay, so here we go. I don't know. Okay. If it was designated as unknown male B, again, I don't know if it was from a mixed sample or not. And then Anne says, Your Honor, if I may have just a moment, thank you for that. I mean, she didn't even ask for a question. Was that a question or was that like a statement? Like, I'm just going to take a minute. It says, question, just a couple other questions for you. As it relates to male E, it was compared to this sheath. Is that right? Correct. A paternity comparison. Question, male E profile was compared to a lot of other evidence, other evident items in the case, wasn't it? Correct. And you are allowed to do a manual interpretation per your policy, right? If there is, so it's not black and white. So if it is a single source and we look at it and say that the person is excluded, they are not the source of the DNA, then yes, that can be done manually or manual. And by manual, I mean a person looking at it. If it is a probative comparison, and how we define a probative comparison is if it's saying something about who could be the source of the DNA on an item of evidence that's relevant to the case, then no, we do not do a manual comparison and issue a statement about that, because all of our standards, we have to issue a statistic so that the tier of facts has something to gauge how unique that could be. What is likelihood that the DNA could be from someone else? We provide that statistic. We don't just say it matches. That requires a statistical calculation, which we use a probabilistic genotyping software to do. Question, I apologize. I think I got lost in there. Are you telling me because it was a mix, you couldn't have done a manual interpretation on 95.9.1? And the answer to that is because it's a mixed profile, and because if it was, you're saying it was Brian's DNA, Brian Kohlberger's DNA present, that would be a probative comparison in the case, which we have to provide a statistic in order to make that statement. In order to deconvolate can't even say it now, deconvolate a mixture, we are no longer allowed to do those manually, deconvolate as in separate the mixture into its components. We have a software. That software was not designed for, nor was it validated for, doing evidence-to-evidence comparisons. Question, now you're speaking my language. Validations are important for integrity. Is that right? In forensic, our laboratory uses validations to ensure any new tool is working properly. Now, at some point later, your lab issued a report saying matching the DNA on the sheath with DNA taken from Brian Kohlberger. Is that right? That's correct. A statistic was provided. Now I want to talk about what we're talking about when we say the sheath. You're familiar with what happened with the sheath for swabbing. Is that right? I had to get a drink. It says, I've seen the knife sheath and I know how our laboratory performs swabbing of evidence, but I did not swab that item of evidence, nor did I see it being swabbed. And I'm actually, hold on one second. I'm going to jump off over here I'm going to jump off of TikTok because my phone's about to die. So hold on one second. Okay, sorry about that. Yeah, Ashley, you're absolutely right. And welcome in, everybody. Oh, pina colada sounds good. I don't even drink. That sounds good, though. It's like the right amount of alcohol, you know? Or you can get it without alcohol, I guess. I'm an ex-bartender, so I go to drinking whenever I think of pina coladas. So it says here, I've seen the sheath and I know All right. I've seen the sheaf and I know how our laboratory performs swabbing of evidence, but I did not swab that item of evidence, nor did I see it being swabbed. As I understood it, though, you've read the lab notes. At one point, I believe I did read the notes. I think I was asked a question and then analyst was out of town or something. And I think you answered that question to law enforcement after consulting somebody else who was with the swabber when the sheath was swabbed. Is that right? The swabber. It's sounding familiar. If I understand the lab reports, it's a single source of the knife sheath. Is that right? It's a single source on the knife sheath. Correct. Does that mean it's only one person in that area? Yes, that was detected through our testing. Tell me where you think that sheath was swabbed for purposes of DNA collection. I believe the analysis swabbed there's kind of a snap or a button that was the top of the snap, and that's the area that was swabbed. There were other areas on it sampled as well. For the purposes of unknown male A that you're telling us later came back to Brian Kohlberger, that's the only place I want to talk about right now. Are we on top of the button, the outside or the inside, the socket portion of the button? I know on the top, I don't recall if the swab was underside or not. I'd have to look at her notes again because she didn't do it. Do you know if the sheath was part of that preserved for fingerprinting? The swabbing was done first. That's our laboratory standard order of processing. If DNA is needed and fingerprints, they will work together. Essentially, fingerprints will say we can see some possible ridging details. So if you can avoid this area after DNA says we want to swab this and they come to a decision of what would best suit them, that item of evidence to determine where to swab. So the swabbing takes place first. You are going to want DNA evidence before you are going to want a fingerprint. So they are going to spray it and they are going to swab it. They're going to try their best to only take a small portion. Like if there's a whole fingerprint, like on a mirror, let's say, right? Like they would essentially just try to swab a little to the side. That way the ridge detail was still in the fingerprint and they could still, get a hit off the fingerprint as well. But if it's one or if they got to pick or choose, they're going to choose DNA. Every day of the week and twice on Sunday. I know a lot of people have been talking about that. So I think I don't have any other questions right now. Thank you. How long do you think you have? The court says, how long do you think you have? I'm just trying to gauge a break here. And then Mr. Nye says, I'd say 10 minutes. The court, let's take 10 minutes and we'll be back. Okay, so recess. So then cross-examination starts with the prosecution. Good morning. I have just a few questions for you today. So you talked a little bit about policies and procedures in the lab. Do you recall that testimony? Yes. And you talked about that there are policies and procedures related specifically to DNA. Is that correct? Correct. As part of those policies and procedures, does the lab need to have a legitimate reason to test DNA? Yes, we only test DNA related to criminal investigations or to death investigations, and it needs to be an item that will answer a probative question in a case. So, for example, if someone at the lab wanted to test DNA out of curiosity about medical information, that would not be consistent with that policy. We don't do curiosity testing, and none of our testing would provide medical information. You also testified that you were involved in or maybe primarily responsible for developing the scope of work request for Othram. Is that correct? I was part of that, yes. And that was the scope of work request. That just goes with, and this was my first one I've done, so I don't have vast experience in this process. But when we're going to contract with a vendor, just going through and outlining what we expect them to do as part of that. And what do you recall about this request specifically? What were you requesting Othram to do? Specifically, we were requesting them, if necessary, to perform DNA extraction, pulling the DNA out of the cells of an item of evidence. If necessary, our laboratory typically did that. We were requesting them to generate an SNP profile using either SNP array or whole genome sequencing. We are requesting them to then upload that to all public databases that allow law enforcement samples. We were requesting them to generate a report. We were requesting them to notify us or to complete the lab portion of the work generation of the profile within 60 days, I believe. I believe there was also information in there about not publicly giving our case information to the public without our express permission, things of that nature. Was there anything in the scope of work requested related to medical information? No. So you weren't asking Othram to determine if this DNA was DNA, the person whose DNA this was had, for example, cancer. No. Now in your position and in this case, you testified you didn't actually do any of the testing and you've read a lot of the reports that were involved. Is that correct? I've seen a lot of the reports, correct. And of all the reports you've read, have you seen that kind of information? No, the testing our laboratory doesn't generate any medical information. And you also talked about in the scope of work, Othram was required to provide you with at least one report. At least one report, correct. And did you have a chance to review that? I have seen that report, yes. Did it contain medical information? No, it did not. Now, you also talked a little bit with Ms. Taylor about an MOU. Do you remember that discussion? Yes. I just want to be clear, who were the parties to that MOU? The parties to that MOU specific to this case were the Moscow Police Department, the Latah County Prosecuting Attorney's Office, and Idaho State Police Forensic Services. So Othram was not a party to that MOU, correct. And the FBI was not a party to that MOU, correct. In another part of your testimony, you spoke with Ms. Taylor about the trash pool. Do you recall that testimony? Yes. And that one of the samples that was pulled from the trash was a mixed sample. Your lab did not compare that. Is that correct? Correct. And can you explain why you did not compare that? So initially, we did not compare that because it was a mixed profile. We did not know the source of that profile, so it could not be considered a secondary reference. So we deemed that to be an evidentiary sample. And we can't make a manual comparison of evidence to evidence, especially when there's a mixture. And if the analysis, again, I was not the analyst, if the analyst did the comparison and determined that unknown male A could have been in that mixture, it would have been inappropriate to compare those two samples together per our analytical methods. And so the decision was not to compare that. Who made that decision? That would have been the analysis that worked that case. So you weren't, to your knowledge, no one at the lab was advised, for example, by the lead investigator on this case, which of those items to test? No. You also gave some testimonies about the knife sheath and the swabs on the knife sheath. Do you recall that? Yes. And I know you don't recall exactly where the knife sheath was swabbed, but we've been talking about policies. Do your policies or best practices suggest where a knife sheath or an item like that should be swabbed for DNA? No, it would be impossible for our analytical methods to cover how to swab or where to swab every single item of evidence. We received quite a wide variety of items into the laboratory. So it's the analyst's job as a scientist, as a practitioner in the forensic biology, screening, and DNA analyst to know what they're targeting. So this item, I believe there was also BLOOD, so they would have been targeting that separate and then also trying to determine who may have handled that. So they would have specifically honed in on an area that whoever handled it would have had to have touched and maybe touched repeatedly. And why do they hone in on those areas in particular? Because that's the question we are trying to answer. In forensic DNA analysis, the questions we're trying to answer is, can we link an assailant to victim, victim to assailant, or one or both to the scene? So in this instance, my understanding, the sheath was found at the scene, so trying to link the possible perpetrator to the scene. And why is the And why in particular do you hone in on the areas where this person may have handled the knife sheath? Sorry. My lips were getting dry. Because so DNA is found in the cells of our body, and that includes the skin cells that are dislodged off our hands when items are handled. So looking for any touch DNA is the term that is most often used, or from someone touching or handling an item. So if I'm understanding correctly, then analyst is swabbing the places that would most likely have that touch DNA. Correct. No further questions. Redirect. Thank you. Of course she did. Your Honor, I would like to start by sharing a computer screen that I have approved with the prosecutor for refreshing her memory. The court. Judge Hippler says, it's just for refreshing. It's not an exhibit. And said, yeah, it is. May I approach? And he said, Judge Hippler said, go ahead. We have established she doesn't remember, or are we just going to stipulate to it? Ms. Taylor said, Your Honor, I can ask the question. Hippler said, we can save time if you're going to stipulate to it. Mr. Nye said, yeah, that's totally fine, Your Honor. And Hippler says, let's do that. Are you going to share the screen with the court or just her? It's just to refresh her memory, Your Honor. Gotcha. And then redirect examination by Ms. Taylor. We are talking at the end of my questions and where Mr. Nice just left off with you about where the sheath would have been swabbed. Reading the email that's been placed in front of you, does that refresh your recollection about what you believe to be the place the sheath was swabbed? Very much so. Where was it swabbed? The knife was swabbed the entire, can I? And then Hippler says, did you say the knife was swabbed? And then the witness says, sorry, the knife sheath. Am I allowed to read it? Ms. Taylor said, question, you're supposed to read it and let it refresh your recollection and then not read it, but just tell me a summary of where it was. The entire leather portion of the strap, both top and bottom, and then the underside of the button. I misspoke. She did not swab the top of the button because that was determined to be the most likely place for fingerprints to be found. Okay. So they didn't, okay, so the button goes down. The actual button of the knife sheath, they didn't test for DNA, that button, because they were hoping to get a fingerprint off of that when, you hit clip the button. But they did the inside of the button because your fingers will scrape across that when you're unsnapping it. So it says the underside of the button, was it the part that the sticky out part would go into, or the sticky out part, or both? Oh my God, there has to be a better word for that. I can't tell from this. I would have to look at her notes. Okay, good enough. Thank you. A couple of follow-up questions for you. You answered a lot of questions for Mr. Nye about medical information and that your lab does not do testing for medical information. Is that because you do STR or YSTR testing and not SNP testing? Correct. Our laboratory performs both STR and YSTRs, and those don't yield medical information. The MOU you reviewed and remember, the Department of Justice interim policy applied to the circumstances in this case. Do you know who else the interim policy applies to? Based on what is stated in the interim policy, it applies to public laboratories like ours that receive federal funding and cases where federal funding is being used. In Mr. Colbert's case, there was federal funding being used. To my knowledge, I don't know if we did use federal funding in this case. Do you recall talking to me a couple days ago? Yes. And do you recall telling me that you did? I do recall telling you that we had a grant in place, but again, I authorized payment of the invoice, but which fund the funds came out of, I don't know. And I apologize if I misspoke. Question, and are you aware that the FBI FIGG unit, I guess, took over and the FBI finished the genetic genealogy after Othram was stopped? I'm aware we were authorized to turn it over, but as to what happened after that, I don't know. Okay, one more question for you. You talked to Mr. Nye a bit about not comparing the sample 95.9.1 to the sheath DNA. And I had asked you a little bit about your policy that allowed you to do the hand search, the manual search on that. Your policy does allow you to do a comparison like that. It's either excluded or not excluded, though. Is that right? And I'm looking at policy 4.5.6. No, we cannot report an exclusion. They aren't from the same source. But in order to say they are from the same source, considering they're from completely different areas, no, we would have to provide a statistic, and we cannot do that. But you could have looked at it and said it's not excluded. That would be an indication that it's possible, and we would have to provide a statistic for that. And we have, so our biology section, you may be looking at our analytical methods. Biology section has their own quality manual that further discusses this. And then Anne says, Your Honor, if I can have her shown this document to see if we can refresh her memory. You know, I just realized, hold on a second here. I was like, why are these not highlighted? It's because I didn't even pull up the damn document, like the one that I had downloaded. Hold on. It won't like pull it up. That's weird. That's so weird. Oh no, it's okay. We made it this far. As Anne said, Your Honor, if I can have her shown this document to see if we can refresh her memory. And Hippler said, for the record, identify what you're showing her. Taylor says, what I'm showing her are a couple pages out of the biology manual for the Idaho State Police Forensics Lab that is available online. Question. So Ms. Nolan, if you'll look at the very bottom one, that's the one I'm having trouble squaring with your testimony. If that refreshes your recollection or helps me understand. So this is our answer. So what this is talking about is it may be beneficial to make a qualitative statement about evidence to evidence comparison. However, there is another section of our biology quality manual that specifically states if it's a probative comparison, a statistic must be provided. But what this is saying, so for instance, if you're in one room in a scene and there's multiple swabs that are tested, we can say these are consistent or these appear to be from the same unknown individual. Now, if I'm going to say these are from John Doe, I have to provide a statistic for each item and do a comparison of each item. I'm going to take this microphone off, my extra mic. Did I hear you say you could compare if they were probative? If it's, which that wouldn't be in mind, a probative comparison, we have multiple items of evidence in that same room in the scene, we can say they appear to be consistent with the same unknown individual. That's not making any statement about who that individual might be. If I'm making a statement about who might be the source of that, then that is a probative comparison and I need to provide a statistic. Before you make the comparison where maybe you write exclusions, you don't know if it's excluded or included, though. Is that right? I'm sorry, could you repeat that? And she says, yeah. Let me try and explain what I'm getting at. I'm not understanding why 95.9.1 couldn't have been manually looked at to do a manual comparison to the sheath DNA just to say excluded or not, when male E was compared to multiple items of evidence and it was excluded. But you don't know that until you do the comparison. Is that right? Correct. So you can look at it manually, but if we're now making a probative statement, then we need to provide a statistic. And male E was also a single source, which is different than a mixture of DNA from multiple people. All right, I don't think I have any other questions. Thank you. Maybe I can take those pages back from you. The court says, thank you. You can call your next witness. And let's see where we're at. Okay. What page are we on? 84. Let's see. I was going to say how long this one was. 84. Um, okay. We'll keep going. We'll try to make it through the full. I think it was like I wanted to get to page 113. So we can do it. What page were we on though? Okay. So Matthew Gamet is the next witness, and Anne called him. So good morning. Good morning. Will you please state your name? Yes, my name is Matthew Gamet. How are you employed? I'm employed with the Idaho State Police Forensic Services, and I'm a laboratory system director. What does that mean to be the laboratory system director? I oversee operations of the laboratory system. I oversee anything from purchasing, procurement, contracts, human resource type issues, and hiring and terminations. I also oversee things like just how the laboratory operates day to day. How long have you held that role? I've been with the Idaho State Police Forensic Services for just about 16 years, and I believe I've held this current role for about 10. Do you have prior experience in a similar line of work? I do. Prior to working for the Idaho State Police, I worked for Washington State Patrol as a DNA analysis and also a crime scene responder. How were you educated? I have a bachelor's degree from Brigham Young University. I also have a master's degree from Brigham Young University, and then I have a continuing certificates from both West Virginia University and UC Davis. Are you involved in the collaborative group NTVIC? I am. What is that group? So that is the National Technology Implementation Collaborative. So currently my role there is to chair that group. Question, as it relates to forensic investigative genetic genealogy, what's the group's role with that field? So currently what we're working on, we have several different subcommittees in our forensic investigative genetic genealogy group. What that group is focused on is anything from policies, procedures, contracts, things of that nature, looking at that implementation of that technology into public forensic science laboratories. Why is that important? Why is the work of the group important? Let me ask the question better. Why is it important to have policy and procedures? Really, Anne, you're going to ask that question? In any public forensic science laboratory, we want to make sure we implement technology well, and we implement it with a robust way that it can be relied upon for things such as courts. And so we always want to make sure that when we're implementing a technology, that we take a look at how that technology is being used and that we apply it well in the public laboratory space. Is that important for public trust? I believe so, yes. Are there other organizations that you're involved in the course of your work? Yes, I'm involved with several other forensic science organizations. How about ASCLD? Yes. What is that one? ASCLD, the American Society of Crime Lab Directors. What is the purpose of that group? So that's the group of laboratory directors. It could be a laboratory managers, quality managers, laboratory leaders, in essence, are members of that organization. What is your role in that group? Currently, I report to the board of directors as the CFSO, the Consortium of Forensic Science Organizations liaison for the organization for ASCLD. Never heard of that shit before a day in my life, but okay. Did you have a role in deciding that Othram Labs should contract with Idaho State Police Forensic Labs? I did have a role, yes. What was your role? My role would be as the laboratory system director, making a decision on contracts that would be awarded. Did you decide that Othram should receive the contract? I did not. Did you work on the contract with Othram? I need to answer that question in a little bit different way than you asked it if you'll give me some leeway. Sure. I did not work specifically on the contract with Othram. However, I worked on the specifications that led to the contract being awarded to Othram. Mary Beth, thank you so much for gifting out 5 memberships. Thank you. Welcome on aboard, everybody. And welcome in, everybody. I'm sorry I haven't been I've been reading, so I haven't been on the screen. But if you guys have any questions, just, hey, Daniel, just put some, like, bomb little things in the chat, and maybe that'll help me see the chat. Since I'm just reading along, It says the specifications you worked on, did those end up becoming part of the contract with Othram? Yes. What were those specifications? So there were a lot of specifications within the scope of work that we developed to send out for a general bid process. As we bid as a state agency, as we bid for a contract, we send out specifications that anyone has to comply with as they give us their documents and responses back on those things. Then we have the ability to look at and make sure that they are compliant with those specifications and that we have sent out. What were the specifications for Othram? There were a lot of specifications sent out on the request for proposals intent to bid. There were a lot of different specifications that were sent out. Again, I have a recollection of some of them. I don't have full memory of all of them. Will you share with us what you do recall? So things in that contract would specify that they use the interim policy. We also would put things in there about them following environmental protection type provisions the federal government requires us to abide by. It also would have other things like reporting requirements back to us, billing procedures, a lot of different conditions we put in that to specify how they're going to work with us. When you say interim policy, are you referring to the Department of Justice interim policy? Yes. Did you care if they were an accredited lab? So at this time, we were looking for a forensic investigative genetic genealogy vendor or company to provide these services for us. We were not aware of any companies at that time that were accredited. Since that time, though, are you aware that companies do become accredited? Absolutely. Currently, there are definitely companies that are accredited in these services. At the time that this contract was bid, there were none to my knowledge. Did you look at the procedures and protocols of Othram before you decided? So I don't recall specifically myself reviewing those criteria. I know there were manuals, protocols that were provided back to us as part of that bid. Generally, I would provide those to others within our laboratory that were more qualified than I was looking at the specific technology, and I'm not qualified in FIGG analysis or FIG analysis. Do you recall if their instruments were validated? I do not recall. Would that be important to have their instruments validated? Validation is up to each laboratory and how they accomplish that. I can't speak to the working practices of Othram laboratories. Does Idaho State Police Forensic Lab validate their equipment? Yes, we do. Is that important to do that? To us as an accredited laboratory, yes, that is an important part. How about retention of data or the ability to go back and rebuild the work or look at the work that was done? So her answer to that was, or his. So we retain in our cases, we retain our electronic data, we retain any other notes and things we make as part of the case records, part of our case file. We provide those to the investigators and to the court as a normal business practice. Did Othram do that? In this case, I believe they gave us a report or what was identified as a preliminary report. The contract specifies that they would keep any data or other things associated with that. For our purposes, we were most concerned that the data or anything else not be released to any other parties. And so our concern was more about data security, data privacy. And so in this case, I don't know if they have other data or other records that they have kept that they retained. We had asked them as part of the determination in this case of our work that they would preserve those things or that they would communicate with both the prosecutor's office and with Moscow Police Department if any of that information was to be disposed or whatnot. Okay, keep it all or tell somebody before you get rid of it. Am I understanding that? Our specification was that it stopped our process with them and that we were no longer in a contractual obligation with them on this case. Essentially, we were transferring ownership of anything on this case between them and Moscow Police Department and the prosecutor's office. So the next question, the report that you ended up receiving from them, are you aware that the report doesn't provide details of how they did their work? I have seen that report. Yes, I have seen that. I have seen what was in the report. Would you agree that what's in the report is far different than what the Idaho State Police Forensics Lab produces by way of notes and photographs in connection with its work? We were not provided with analytical notes. We were not provided with data to my knowledge. We were provided with what was identified to me as a preliminary report, which contained some of their genealogical work on the case and other things such as potential nationalities. Is that different than what you produce when you produce a report at your lab? It's hard for me to answer that question because it's a different report. It's a different type of analysis. And so I can't make a qualification there. I can tell you in our DNA reports, we release the report, we release the analyst notes. As a general practice, we have the electronic data and other things available for disclosure, but that's our general practice. I can't speak to the process as Othram Labs and what they disclose, nor can I speak to what is normal for the release of FIGG in a FIG case. I'm going to say FIG. Are you familiar with how you come up with SNP, with that process where you get from a DNA sample to an SNP? In general, yes, but I'm not qualified in FIG analysis. Okay, I won't go too far with that. Are you familiar with how you get from a DNA sample to an STR sample for the lab purposes? Yes. Are there similarities between the two processes from getting pieces of DNA to an end result profile that you can see? And the answer was similarities in processes as far as extraction and quantitation of DNA, but as far as instrumentation used, methods, and those kinds of things, they're different processes. So some of the documents that Idaho State Police Forensic Lab produces that show us those results, those would be similar to what you would expect to see with an SNP. The answer is, I would assume, again, I'm not qualified in FIG analysis, so I can't speak to what documents they may or may have not produced. Like, Anne is just trying to get this lady or the person to just like go out of their wheelhouse, and they're not doing it. Let's move on from there. Thank you for that. And let's talk about Othram being involved in the case that winds up being why we're here today. What communication did you have with Othram on the early end of that process? So to my recollection, our early communication on this case was providing them with DNA that they would be able to develop, hopefully, an investigative lead for us on the case. After that sample, to my knowledge, had been that we had followed our processes through and that we had put a sample into CODIS, that we had not received any hits off of CODIS, and then we would proceed with the next step of testing. We did have a contractual relationship with them since early in, I believe, 2021. And so we did have a contract with them in place. Was this the first case that Othram worked pursuant to that contract? No, I don't believe so. How did they get the DNA? The DNA sample itself, that DNA sample was delivered by Moscow Police Department in person to them at Othram Labs. Did you have any role in that part? I did. What did you do? I accompanied the officer from Boise down to Houston and down to the Othram laboratory. I didn't have possession of the sample, but I was with the investigator that did. After that sample was delivered, did you have communications with Othram further? Yes. What were those? She wanted to know everything. So I had communications to my memory with them about the type of analysis we were asking them to do, also what type of searching. I remember they asked specifically for consent to do certain types of searching. We had to authorize things through memos and whatnot of them doing certain searching. Specifically, I believe it was family tree DNA that they needed an authorization for. I remember having significant discussions with them about YSTR testing and if or how that would be accomplished. Why did you want Othram to do YSTR testing? So the reason for the YSTR testing is to utilize different investigative databases that might be out there. I don't believe in this case we ever did YSTR testing. A lot of the discussion was around preservation of the sample, or as much of the sample we could preserve. And so our recommendation to them was to not proceed with that type of testing at this time, to kind of see where we were able to go with the traditional SNP testing with the whole genome sequencing. And then we would maybe potentially revisit the YSTR testing. I do remember some discussion with David Middleman at Othram about if they were able to bootstrap some of the whole genome sequencing in order to develop a Y profile that could be searchable from the data that they had already developed, instead of using additional samples to specifically develop a YSTR profile or any kind of Y profile. Why does that mean what does that mean bootstrapping? Take me back. They have this DNA sample, and then do they have they done those steps to get to their SNP before you want bootstrapping done, or at what stage are you talking about? Essentially, it was our understanding that they were in the process of or had already obtained a whole genome sequencing profile. And so our question to them was, is there a way to develop a YSTR profile from the genetic information that you already have through other method of testing? And that's what you mean by bootstrap. Add a different kind of analysis. Correct. Why would you want to do that? Again, to see if there was a potential to search Y databases that might be available out there to identify genetic lineage. What does that mean, genetic lineage? So a Y chromosome is passed down from a father to son, and so we would be looking to see if we can identify a family line through tracking the Y chromosome DNA from father to son to grandfather, all the way down to grandson, and potentially over multiple generations. So it would tie us into a family line that could be investigated further. Did Othram bootstrap and get the YSTR for you? To my knowledge, they never did anything with YSTR testing, and to my recollection, with my discussions with David, that wasn't possible with the data that he had at that point. It was impossible. That it was not possible, correct. Thank you. I do not believe that was attempted. Again, I am not familiar with the technology that he would have had to have used to do such a thing. So I'm not aware if that was possible. If the technology didn't exist, I just don't know. Because she's asking her questions she don't know the answers to. Okay, at some point did Othram talk to you about the work they were doing? Yes. And did they have a recommendation? They did. They had at least one recommendation that I remember. When was that conversation? I don't remember exactly when that conversation happened. Well, let's put it between, when did they get the DNA to start with? So they got the DNA November 22nd, I believe. And when were they notified to stop work? I believe the official notification was on December 10th, if I remember correctly. So when they came back to you with some recommendations, there was that in relation to the stop work. Probably early in December, I'm guessing. The actual work in the laboratory, what I would call the wet work in the laboratory, would be the first couple of weeks probably before they would have turned it over to a genealogist to be searching in the databases and those sorts of things. To make sure I'm with you, wet work means DNA sample to where we get to the whole genome sequencing and then where we get to an SNP. I know I'm skipping steps, but that's the wet work. Correct. The laboratory work, so anything that would be done in physical laboratory, handling the sample, putting it into the tubes, adding liquids, things of that nature, that would be done in a laboratory. Sequencing on an instrument, that would be done in the first week, several weeks. So after that, they would have a recommendation for you. Correct. What was the recommendation to you? The recommendation to my memory, to my recall, was that they had several individuals that had the potential to be of interest in this investigation. They asked us if, to further their family tree building, if we could be in contact with individuals to see if they were willing to contribute information into the databases that they were using in order to further the family tree building and further the genealogical work. Question. And we're in a closed setting here, so I'm going to ask you to give me the last name. I don't recall the last name. I'm sorry. Was it your understanding that these were 4 brothers? Yes. Okay. What did you do in relation to these 4 brothers? So we did some cursory work, just looking in publicly accessible information, literally Google searches and things of that nature. What our approach was is we didn't want to be approaching people, especially with an investigation of this nature that really had nothing to do with anything. We just wanted to make sure there was some reason why Othram Laboratories was asking us to go and ask these individuals to put their DNA into the database that law enforcement can search. So we just did some work to build just very cursory family trees to see what connection these individuals might have and to verify these individuals were indeed brothers, things of that nature. Did you verify they were 4 brothers? I don't know that they would use the word verify, but we believed that the information was reliable that they had given us based on the publicly accessible information. Now, I know you said you can't remember the last name of those brothers. We're here today, and Brian Kohlberger's name has been on the news for 2 years. You know his name. That wasn't the last name. That was not the last name. After you did the cursory work and the family tree, what was the next thing you did in relation to these 4 brothers? We, at some point, and I don't remember exactly when, we had asked our investigator, Detective Vicky Gotch, with the Idaho State Police to reach out to one of the brothers we believe had put information into a genealogical database, ask him if he would be willing to upload that into one of these databases so we could further build out and use that information. She was, I believe, initially able to contact the individual. He was skeptical about her contact. And so there was another contact, a 3-way call made between myself, Vicky, and this individual for purpose of trying to validate this was indeed a law enforcement investigation. This was indeed a legitimate request. And at that point, that individual requested not to be contacted again and was not interested in participating. Wow. Somebody had Brian Kohlberger's back, right? True crime alibis. So they reach out to this person. Maybe they say, "Yo, you related to Brian Kohlberger?" No. Maybe they ask him, first they were skeptical about this even being legit. So I'm assuming that they gave him the name or gave him, well, I guess they were still looking for the name. Let me read this again. It says for trying to validate this. I don't know. I feel like maybe this could have been one of Brian's relatives. During the time leading up to that phone call, when you were building your family tree, I know none of the 4 brothers had the last name Kohlberger. That name didn't come up when you were building the family tree either, did it? No. After that brother said, "Don't contact me again," what was the next thing you did? Contact him again. I'm just kidding. So I don't remember again exactly when the time frame was with that, but I know that there was active discussions about having a phone call with the agency and the prosecutor's office about the work that was being done. They were requesting updates from us of what the Othram laboratory was doing. Where are you at an investigation? Those types of things. We were giving them updates via telephone, via telephonic conferences with them, just giving them updates on we've delivered the sample, we've done this, those sorts of updates. And then they requested a meeting with us to talk about the testing. Question, those conferences, who participated in those? Most of the time, to my memory, it was usually Idaho State Police detectives. The prosecutor's office might have also been privy to some of those discussions. Again, just general updates about where we were in the process. Tell me about this meeting. It sounds like there's a big meeting that happens. There was a meeting to my knowledge, and I don't remember exactly when, but probably the morning of December 10th when we had a meeting, telephonic meeting is my memory, with representatives from Moscow Police Department. I believe FBI had representatives on the phone call, ISP, I believe, myself, ISP legal counsel, and I believe that the Colonial of State Police was also on the phone call. What happened on the phone call? Let's see. What happened on the phone call? In the phone call, we were asked to turn over any kind of investigative records that we had, any kind of information we had, to the FBI team. They provided me with an email address to be able to provide what they were requesting from us, which was, to my memory, it was the login information essentially, and it might have been other things I'm not aware of, like packets and things. I'm not aware of the technical terms, but basically they were asking us to provide that information to the FBI investigator. Did you do that? Yes. Do you know what you provided to the FBI investigator? So what was asked for us to be provided were the 2 database searches or information so that those could be independently searched. And we also asked them to cooperate and provide any information that they need to be able to further investigate. When you say 2 databases, do you mean 2 genetic genealogy databases that allow law enforcement to search? Yes, to my knowledge, those samples were searched into genealogical databases that allow searching by law enforcement. So GEDmatch and Family Tree DNA, I believe, were the 2 that were searched. And we were asked to provide those credentials, that information, to the FBI. Do you know that GEDmatch has 2 different databases, GEDmatch and GEDmatch Pro? Yes. Is it because one of those allows law enforcement and the other doesn't? I believe that is correct. Okay, Idaho State Police Forensic Lab direction to Othram was to look only in the database that allow law enforcement search. Is that correct? Our direction to them was to follow the intern policy per contract with them, and any other communications we would have had with them would be to follow the intern policy. Does that mean, yes, you expected them to only search the allowed databases? I believe that is what would have been communicated. That's our understanding of what the intern policy means, is they would search those databases that were allowable to be searched by us as law enforcement entity. After Othram turns over whatever they turn over to the FBI and you get the report and they get paid, is at the end of it with Othram for this case. So they provided to us a report after we asked them to turn over all the information to the investigating agency and to the FBI. They provided us with what was identified as a preliminary report. I believe they titled it that because it was not a final report. The testing, we had asked them to terminate the testing, but they were not at the final result of a name to provide to us, an investigative lead to provide to us. Why was the decision made for the FBI to take this over and not let Othram finish? I don't know. I can't speak to that. In that meeting, there was nothing stated about why we were going to do this. I don't recall specific reasons, but they asked us to transfer everything to the FBI. Okay, did you take a look at the 2 profiles, the FBI SNP profile and Othram's SNP profiles? Have you ever looked at those? Did we look at those, or did I look at those? Did you? I did not know. Have you seen them? No. Would it surprise you to know that FBI profile was over twice as big as Othram's? Again, I have no knowledge of what the FBI did or didn't do. I have no knowledge, or yeah. How involved were you with the FBI's process of their genetic genealogy? I was not involved other than to provide the samples to where they were asked us to send the samples to, and then from that point, I was not involved in the process. Question, have you become aware that they search databases that are not allowed to be searched by law enforcement? Pure speculation is all I know, but I have no firsthand knowledge of anything. Okay, fair enough. Thanks for that. And then Miss Taylor says, Your Honor, if I can have just a moment. I have a couple of questions for you about some documentation. Sure. The document that gave recommendations for you to call some of the four brothers, where is that? So I believe that that was provided to us telephonically. I don't think there was like an official report. I don't think there was an email. I think it was the names provided telephonically. And then those names were actually provided as part of that report that came several days after the conclusion of testing. Okay, so do you recognize the names from the report? Yes, those had been provided to us before. The work that you were doing before trying to call one of the brothers, where did you keep your documents for that? As far as the records for that, I'm sorry, I'm confused on the question. Let me ask it better. You did some research work before you and Detective Gotch made the phone call to one of the brothers and kind of built out a family tree and did some other research. Where did you keep that? Those were paper copies, and those were just retained and then sent to Othram as part of us communicating back to them, basically saying, this is the work we did. We're providing these back to you in case they're helpful as you continue to build out the family trees. Do you still have copies of those? Yes. Did you document your attempt to get a voluntary sample from one of the brothers? I do not believe so. Do you know if Detective Gotch wrote a police report about that? I do not know. Did she provide any of her notes to you, her investigative notes? Not to me. I don't know if she kept the notes. Okay, did you watch her write anything down? I did not. We were telephonic, believe, at that point. It would be hard to see then. Yeah, and it would be. Have you seen any documentation from that December 10th meeting? Not to my knowledge. Okay, any documentation that come from your way from the FBI's work? Not to my knowledge. Have you turned over your work with the genealogy that help you the help you were giving Othram? Have you turned over that to the prosecutor? I have not turned over physical copies of anything. I believe that our agency complied with the discovery request. I don't know exactly what was provided as part of the discovery request. Certainly it is an email document from me to Othram Laboratories, and as much I would assume that would have gone as part of the discovery request. Are you talking about the discovery request that the defense made? I'm not exactly sure. We were just asked to comply. We know that at any point our emails are discoverable, and I believe the way the ISP handles discovery requests, large discovery requests especially, is to do a quote email pool of anything that might be related to the case. I think that area that I'm concerned about, and I do have a lot of emails, so thank you for that. The procedures and protocols from Othram that you know about that you've read, where are they? So the protocols would have been back in 2021, I believe, from when we initially did the RFP. I believe it was the RFP process. I'm not completely familiar. It might be an intent to bid. I'm not sure what to call the process. Regardless, when the process was going through, they would have provided these documents to us at that point. And I believe those documents likely exist. Okay. Any of the work that Othram did in getting from DNA sample all the way from the S&P profile, where are they? Where is the documentation of that? I do not have that documentation. That was not provided to us, to my knowledge. And I don't know everything that was provided back to the laboratory potentially, but to my knowledge, we were not provided with that information. Okay. Would Othram have it? Potentially, I don't know. The work that they did to come up with a name to give you for your further investigation, where are those documents? I don't know. And your documents some went to Othram, but you still have a copy of those. I do. I think that's it. Thank you very much. That's all from me for now. Mr. Nye, no questions, Your Honor. The court, thank you. You can step down, Ms. Taylor. My next witness is Daniel, and we'll talk about Daniel next. Daniel Hellwig. That's so crazy that my actual document didn't come up. Let me see here if this. Yeah, it is. It's all freaking color coordinated. I don't know why it didn't come up. It's so weird. Let me try it again. Probably work now, you know? No, maybe it's because I have this one up already. That's weird. But that was a lot of that was a lot of reading. That was a lot of reading. Let me put this down while I'm talking to you guys. Like put all this stuff up because this was from when I was on TikTok. Okay. So if you're just now joining us and you didn't get to see the background, we got some new stuff. We got some new stuff for the studio. Let me put all this stuff away before I like lose something because it's like the wireless mics I just got. And I don't want to like, you know, mess it up. I don't want to break it already. Whoops. See, look at me. I'm breaking stuff. This goes this way. Okay, maybe it doesn't. Maybe it goes this way. Oh. Maybe it's all the way down in there. I think that's all of it. Oh, thanks, guys. I appreciate it. I am a horrible reader too. But just think about it. This is how I think about it. Oh, I've got one eye, you know, which is really, it's super itchy. Sorry. My eye never is itchy. It's so weird. It's so weird because my other eye doesn't get itchy. Like, you know, when your eyes are like tired and they get like, you want to rub them. I only have to rub like one. But thank you, Kaylee. I appreciate that. Oh, thanks, Anne. It's a lot of words. I appreciate it. I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much. Yeah, you know, when you only got the one eye, it's kind of a little more difficult. Plus, you guys can't tell, but it's a lot brighter in here. It's a hell of a lot brighter in here. Y'all just can't tell. I don't know why. I don't know why it still looks kind of dark. And I'm afraid to touch the button because I'm afraid then it's going to like really like make it go like to where it's like too much white. Like it goes to like this white and then I look real crazy. But I went ahead and put the pot up there, but what we're going to do is we're going to decorate this whole table together because your girl's got bags down here. I can't even remember what I got for the table. Can't tell you. Can't remember. But I did get some stuff to put on the table and I thought we would do like a members live and just kind of like decorate it together. Or I might do it on my second channel. Actually, maybe I'll do it on my second channel tomorrow, but we will be doing a members live soon. If you guys have any like ideas of what you want to see in a members live, let me know. I just want to make the lives good for you guys. That way you guys want to keep your memberships and you know, whatever you guys want to talk about, we can talk about it. Have a good night, True Crime Lullabies. Oh yeah, Zaza. You have to, you know. If I didn't, I'd probably like if I didn't joke about it, I'd probably feel bad for myself or something. I don't know. And I don't feel bad like for myself. Like, although it wasn't my fault, it just it humbles you. It'll humble any. I mean, lose an eye, it'll humble you, especially when you're in your 20s and you lose it. And everybody, I mean, people still tell me this, but in my 20s, and I'm not bragging by any means, but I think a lot of us can say this, you know, in our 20s, we were told, you're so pretty, you're such a pretty girl, you know, like just and that I got told that a lot, you know, not like a lot, but you know what I mean? People say, you're such a pretty girl. And then, you know, you lose your eye and you're like, I'm terrible looking. You just, you know. Really, Patrick? That's crazy. Wonder what it means that when our eyes are itching. Maybe it's like, we're going to get some money. Maybe that means money too. I hope so. Mine's probably itching. Probably because it's like, you're done for the day. Thank you, Mary Beth, for gifting out 5 more memberships. She's going to be shaking the bushes tonight. Well, thanks, Ladybug. Hey, Katie K. Wonder if my brother was listening tonight. I was thinking of him earlier today. I was thinking of him and his old butt. Thanks, Wizard. Oh, honey. Oh, Kaylee. That probably hurts. Surgery, you have to get oh, no way. No, you're braver. You're braver than me. You're braver than me. I've had so many surgeries on my face, on my legs, on my arm, from my head to my toes, but I've never that is like, okay, so like they take it out. You know what I mean? And I'm like I don't know how to explain it. They don't cut it open. No. You had the surgery while you was awake too? I did. I've had that. Mine was a hypnotic surgery. She said, "Can I please do one with you?" She did, like, my doctor no one else was like taking the bait. And I'm like, what are we doing here? What do you mean hypnotic? And I had it done it once before on my mouth, but I was able to fall asleep because they were working on my mouth. If you close your eyes and you're in a hypnotic state or whatever, you can go to sleep if you want, or you can kind of stay awake. But if they're working on your eye, you have no choice but to stay awake because your other eyeball is just going to be open. It's just what it does. It's just what it does. So did you hear the music? Did you have music playing in yours? They were listening to Bruno Mars during my surgery. Uptown Funk. I will never get over that song. Every time I hear it, I just laugh. I laugh because I'm like, every time I hear the song coming on, it just makes me giggle. And someone gave me a compliment, and I saw that, and I want to say thanks. You're welcome, Rongo. I bet you that was our girl, Mary Beth. Oh, BSTN Mass. Thank you. I appreciate the compliment. I really do. Hey, Uri. Is it Ari or Ari? 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 I don't know. Either way, I like it. I think I've asked you that before. Speaking of which, speaking of Aries and stuff, I was thinking of my boutique, Poppy and Ari. Tonight through tomorrow afternoon, until I remember to take the sale off. We still are doing 40% off on our sweaters. It's a hell of a deal, y'all. I mean, hell of a deal. So let's get those sweaters out of here so we can make some room for some new stuff, some summer stuff, some spring stuff. Because spring's coming, y'all. This is a short month. What is it, 23rd? It's the 23rd. We're almost done with this month. We got 1 month until spring. Less than. I'm so excited. I'm so happy. I'm ready. I'm ready, I'm ready for them to open up that pool and see people playing tennis and just all the things. Willows, I was reading your comment. Katie K, I was actually in a horrific car accident. And I'm going to tell my story soon. Someone was actually asking, it's on my page. So if you guys are ever like, I can't wait for Tanya, she's taking too long, just go back to my oldest video and then just go up a little bit. Because my oldest video I got on there it was during 2020, and I just wanted someone to listen to me. But I did make some videos about it. But I think that I can do better now that I'm a better creator. I think, you know what I mean? So where I can give you guys a better storyline, not like it's fake or anything, but you know what I mean? Where it make it interesting. I think y'all would love to hear it though. You guys always tell me, tell us about you. And I've been hiding. Your husband saw a robin today, so he thinks spring is coming. He's ready for spring too, see? Yeah, I'm gonna need to tell it. Because I mean it's not very long. It's not like it would take forever. But it would be we'll probably do it on the second channel. Maybe I'll do it on this channel. Maybe I'll do it on both. Yeah. Let's just say I cheated death twice in one night. Twice in one night. And yeah. Thank you, KDK. Are you a nurse? The prosthetic eyes are where it's at though. Like, I mean, if you have, I'm gonna say like for me having to lose my eye, I thank my lucky stars that I was able and that I'm able to be able to get these prosthetics because they are very expensive. And if I didn't have insurance, no. Right. You got to have some humor. Got to have humor. Oh, you saw hummingbirds? Rongo, where are you from? I love hummingbirds. They're my bird. God does have a plan for me. Yep, this is it, I think. Bringing you guys all together. I mean, it's part of it, it's part of God's plan. Because your girl usually doesn't, like, I never thought I would have a YouTube channel. Like, that wasn't something that I have ever even thought about. Even when I started my YouTube channel, I didn't think about this being a YouTube channel. I just had something to say. Kylie Rodney's case. And I was like, I have something to say. And it just turned out to be a lot. Turned out to be a lot to say. Oh no, I've shared it. So I've shared it. Like I've shared my story before, but like it's just been forever ago. It's been years. So I've been on the platform 2.5 years. And it was before I was even like on the platform for like true crime. But we've been doing true crime for about 2.5 years. Almost 3. It'll be 3 years, I think, September. I had 179 subscribers September of 2022. And we're about to hit 19,000 if we haven't hit it yet. Can you believe that? Can you believe it? Let's see. Before we get off here, how many do we need? Oh my gosh, someone better subscribe right now. We just hit 19,000. I need someone to subscribe. I need to be over. I need y'all to be just get me over the line a little more. That's scary. That's scary. You know what I mean? I don't like that one, like that 19 even. Like I want be over here making some fake accounts. Just kidding. Just kidding. But we just hit 19,000 subscribers. Can you believe that? Wow. That's a lot. That's humbling. How did I convince 19,000 of y'all to hit that subscribe button? I don't know how I did, but I did. Yeah, that's what we do. Make a live with it too. And I was reading, you were hit by a drunk driver 10 years ago. Oh, Zaza. I'm so sorry. Mine was 11 years ago. So, look at that. A year apart, we were dealing with probably one of the worst things that, one of the worst things that would happen to us. Can't say it's the worst, I can't anyway. But I mean, PTSD, I want to talk about that too over on the other channel, like PTSD and all those things. Cause man, it is, it's something. It's something I'll mess with, And I think people use that they have PTSD, like they use that too lightly. And I know you're not. I know you're not. I just by what you just said. But you know how people they do. Like the OCD. They're like, oh my God, I'm OCD. The picture's like crooked and I have to fix it. And it's like, no, you're just normal. People don't like things that are crooked. But yeah, well, thank you guys so much for everything. For everything. What was I gonna say? I think that's all I have for you guys. I don't know if you guys got to see it, but I was going to show you the macrame again. I love this piece. It's so pretty in person. I'm gonna have to take a picture of it. It looks like mountains. It's like hand dipped. Yeah. Winnie the Pooh. Hello. What else do we get? We got the tree, but so the tree's not lit up. You can't see the tree. We got I let Vincent order the tree light, and I told him which one to order, but he went and bought a different one. And the tree light he had bought has a cord, which is fine because we could have hidden the cord, right behind the chair. But I hate cords. I'm blind, so I can trip over them easily and things like that. So we're gonna put one in this little tree back here so you can see it. It's an olive tree. He's fake. We got a real olive tree though out in the living room. And then there's a tree, like a little plant right here that you can't see. It's real. You can't see it. So we're gonna put like a little light there. And then I'm gonna start doing so many pre-recordeds and editing them. They're gonna be so good. I'm so excited for 2025 and what we've got going on. Vincent, if he ever comes on here, or if in the comment section below, comment, thank you, Vincent, for Tanya's studio or something, or, because he really worked his butt off this weekend. He is sick as a dog. He's sick. Like, he sounds like crap. I'm like, stay away from me. I haven't kissed him in 2 days. I'm like, don't look at me. Don't breathe my way. Like really, because I don't want to get sick. He painted this wall today, put this mirror up, put that up, put the light over here, put this light up. I mean, I don't know, more stuff. I can't even, and then he was cleaning. And I'm just like, thank you. Unloaded the dishwasher today. I said, shit, it's my lucky day. I usually do it and I never ask him to. You know what I mean? Because like I just do it. But today I was like, oh, I don't want to take the dishes out of the dishwasher. And he's like, I'll do it. And I was like, I'll let him know you guys said thanks. But yeah, he did. He worked so hard in here. And for being sick, not feeling good. And I'm like, you don't have to do that. Oh, Katie K, I'm so sorry. That's the worst way. My dad's best friend, he committed the S word, and my dad passed away 16 years. I was with my mom after she lost her husband, so I can't relate to losing a husband, but I can relate to how my mom felt and what that made me feel like that. I'm an empath, so every time she felt bad, like it was like my heart broke for her. Yeah, sending love. Oh, thanks, Ladybug. And it took my mom 6 years before she could even say my dad's name without crying. It was sad. Vincent he's the best. He really, yeah. Like, we don't have to do much more in here. Just have to get a picture for up here. I want to get like a picture. I have like these, it looks cute right now. Like it's decorated, but it's not like what I want. And then I'm going to put a couple planter pots over here on this wall and like a picture. And then we're good. We're done. We're golden. And I'm just excited to start, like doing pre-recordeds and just having the better studio, And then we got this light over there, this little like straight light. It's actually blue right now, but it doesn't look like it. And we got that one. And I was always against those lights, like those like neon lights like that, but I really like it. So I'm excited. Yeah, Katie K, always, every day you'll be healing. 6 years ago, Willows, oh my gosh, to both of you, 2 people in the chat? Oh, man. This this world we live in, it sucks sometimes really bad. Oh. I would feel like that would be like you would have some, and I don't wanna make anyone feel guilty, but I would feel like you would feel like guilt. I feel guilt over my cousin, and I'm just now, like, starting to even talk about her, and it's been 6 months, 7 months. I don't even know. I can't even tell you when it happened. Actually, I can, 'cause I can look at my phone, but I've been looking it up, and it's bad. Oh, I didn't even see this from my aunt. I told her I needed to come down and see her, and she said, "Of course." You know, of course she was there, of course. Um, let's see. I checked up on them right here, November 3rd. Wow. What year are we in? Oh my god. I literally November 13th, 2023. That's how far I've put this to the back of my mind and was like, "No, we're not gonna mess with that. We're not gonna touch that. We're not even gonna touch that." I thought she died 6 months ago. She died November 13th, 2023. My cousin died of a rug overdose, and I had no clue that she even had any problems. So it was a lot. She was my best friend, and at times my only friend, you know? So losing her was like losing a sister. Oh, Mary Beth, I bet you are. I'm still in pain about losing my dog. Ella, me and Vincent's first dog together. Oh, your best mate lost her 16-year-old. She hung herself. Oh my gosh. She was buried in her prom dress. Oh, that makes me want to cry, Winnie the pup. It's I wish the kids makes me really sad. I wish that I wish kids could see that it's temporary, like the pain that they have, it's only temporary. You'll grow up. When you're 18, if you think you're gonna marry that man, I'm just saying, more than likely you're not. More than likely you're gonna, you know, date and I don't know. I was thinking of something that I was thinking of an ex today early when Vincent was in here just doing all of this. And I was just like, Mom, did you pick him? Like I was thinking of that because I was thinking my last boyfriend before Vincent was prior to my mom passing away. It was 11 years ago and 12 years ago probably. And he was, gosh, I thought that like I thought he was the one, and he was definitely not near it. Not even. I mean, like I wasn't even in the right arena. I mean, this person was just not meant for me, and my mom knew that. Moms always know, so always listen to your mother too. KJ, I think I believe that. Oh yeah, they can. Animals can have like, I mean, they have an impact on your life. My dogs are my everything. Y'all know that. But my cat, that little son of a gun, when he goes, I know I'm not gonna have him forever. He's 17, but you know, He's still doing really good, but I know whenever he goes, I'll be really upset. I'll be sad. I'll be real sad. Yeah. Oh, Mary Beth. You need another dog. Oh, I'm so sorry, Michael. I had a husky. My dad had a husky growing up. They're wonderful dogs. Beautiful dogs. Wonderful dogs. Oh, I had to put a dog to sleep. And it's hard. That's hard. That's hard. It's really hard. Oh no. Oh, I bet that would still mess with me too. Michael, I'm sorry. She's going back. Oh, Patrick. They always say like whenever they stop eating and stuff is when, or if they like can go off by themselves. Our last dog, when she passed, we think she had a heart attack. It was literally just went. Yeah, that's what it means. Yeah. Yeah, Envision, you got it. Yeah, dogs do. You know what? Actually, this is the first night. I think I don't have two dogs out here waiting on me. Where where the hell are my dogs? I'm like, where the hell are my dogs? Normally they're out the door. They're like right here. I normally can hear them pressing their nose into the door. And I know Vincent has to be sleeping. I don't know. I felt really bad though for him earlier. They were laying on the couch, like the way they were looking at me, like they wanted to come in here. And I don't have enough room. I mean, I do. You know me. I'm gonna have two dog beds on this floor before we know it. Oh, try to fatten her up. It's not working. Oh man, I'm sorry for everyone's losses. I'm gonna go give my dogs a hug now. I usually give them a treat. They get a cookie. They must be with Vincent. But he's usually, I mean, he's sleeping, but they're probably with him sleeping. But normally, if they know I'm awake, that music, I bet you, if I turned on the music right now, the ending music, they would come to you. I'd hear their paws probably coming. But thanks for being here tonight. I am going to start doing some lives throughout the week on the second channel, just so I can get some watch time hours in over there. Plus, we do have some members over there, so I want to do a members only live. We only have like 34, 35 members, but I mean, heck, if there's 34, 35 people over there paying for membership, I need to, give them something to want to come back for. It looks like my little TitaniumBuilt sign's like kind of blurry too. I just did something. I have Vincent check that out. He's been messing with stuff today. My handsome wolf boy. Oh, I call my cat. His name's Rocky. I call him Mystery. Mystery. I don't know. It started from Mister because Vincent started calling him Mister. Hey, Mister. And that was like years ago. And then I was like, hey, Mister. Start calling him that. And then now it's Mystery. I'll make sure we get some TitaniumBuilt merch in here soon. Now, I'm not live on TikTok anymore. No, I don't like that the TikTok goes away. Like your lives or whatever. Right. KDK, yeah. They never know. I mean, they tell us what it's, you got to really watch them, you know? Oh, PKC. We all have older animals. You all will know when Rocky goes. It's either going to be one of two things will happen. If I'm alone, I wouldn't be alone very often. That wouldn't work. I would call Vincent and he would come home. It doesn't matter where he's at. I would either probably come online and cry to you guys because I would be like, like I would cry. Like I would just, because you guys are my people, I would come to you. Or I would just be like, I'm going to take a few days off. Like I would put something on the community tab, like take a couple of days off, death in the family. If it's something like, if you see something like that, you'll know. But I just, yeah. Like if I'm like, I had to go off early, like off the live early because my phone was dying. But I wanted to get some like, I think like it's called like, oh, it's not like watch hours, but like watch time in. They don't, Patrick. It's like they come in your life at a time when you don't even realize you need them. And it's like they do their part. And then, I don't know, they leave when it's time. I actually saw today on Twitter, it was a dog running to you, like if you're looking at it, and it said, like, imagine you going to heaven and somebody's waiting on you. I have to find it. I wonder if I can find it. Y'all be crying though. I'll get y'all crying in here. I probably won't be able to find it because it was like, just like randomly like on my Twitter, but it was so sad. Oh, yesterday Madeline would have turned 14. I don't see it now. It's probably like from forever ago, but man. Wow, everybody's going after her. Like Brittany J, man, everybody's going after her. Like I just saw like 4 posts. That's why I was like, what? Yeah, I don't see it. But it was so cute. It's like the little dog running after you, like running to you, It was one of those commercials or videos. I'm still looking just real quick for it, but I don't see it. But it was really sad. What's this? Oh. Yeah, I don't see it. Darn it. But it was a really cute video. I'll probably see it tomorrow or something when I'm not looking for it. It'll pop up again. But if it does, I'll make sure I keep it. But if you guys don't own a dog anymore, you should own a dog because dogs are amazing. We went and picked up 2 in like 2 months after our dog passed away. It was not very smart. That was not smart. Don't do that. Man, my like For You page on Twitter is all about it's all like Sebastian stuff. And I don't even cover Sebastian's case really. Because there's no case. But Yeah, couldn't find it. I'm like still scrolling. But thank you guys for all being here tonight. I appreciate it. I'm going to jump off here. I'm going to go to bed. But thank you guys. And thanks for talking to me for a little bit after the live. I appreciate that. And I'll see you guys all tomorrow. I don't know who Guilty of Crime is. Oh, wait, no, I do. I've heard that name. Is that the girl with the short hair? I think that's who it is. Guilty of Crime. Vincent's the best. Yeah, this is a good. Oh, Ladybug. Well, I hope you guys all have a good night. And I'm telling you, there are a lot of dogs out there that need, that need like a little loving. I kind of want to get a kitten and like, just so Rocky can teach him some of his like bad ways, before something happens to him, but I'm afraid to get a kitten because my Weimaraner, she barks at Rocky, but like she'll go, like she gets crazy mean sounding, like it sounds mean, like she'll like at her, like just go at it, like go after the cat, but like doesn't go like anywhere, like just that's it, like and the cat, he literally doesn't move, he doesn't flinch, he was raised by dogs, he's like, what do you think you're doing? And who do you think you're talking to like that? So he runs the house. But thanks for spending a little bit of your evening with me tonight. Thanks for sticking with me. If you stuck with me all the way through that reading, you are the real MVPs of the night. But thanks again. I'll see you guys all tomorrow on tomorrow night's live. Have a wonderful evening and have a wonderful Monday morning. Bye, guys.
Just like the street lights lit this town, like a fire in a blaze, gotta burn it down. Can't be afraid to leave this out. We got this far, don't know how. I see danger in your eyes. They know we'll burn down the night. Coming just like the sunrise. You know that we're gonna light it up tonight. We're gonna light it up tonight. We're gonna light it up just like the sunrise. We're gonna light it up now. Just like a spark that's breaking out, can't make a stop.